I'm back in my kitchen with my bunching onions, and I am going to be cutting these into 1/4 inch slices, and I will be dehydrating some of them and flash freezing some of them. The other methods that you can use to preserve these is to you can chop them up, put them in ice cube trays with olive oil, and then when it's frozen, you can take them out and put them in a bag. That sounds like a wonderful idea. I don't actually have ice cube trays, so I'm not going to be doing that. Some people say that you can just take the whole onion and stick this in a glass of water, a jar with water in your refrigerator, and put a little bag over it, and it will stay fresh in your refrigerator for a certain amount of time. So that's awesome. So if you plan to use them fresh for the next week or so, maybe up to 10 days, you could try that method. I personally love dehydrating vegetables. I use my dehydrated vegetables all year long. I usually in spice mixtures and to flavor my foods. So I prefer the dehydrator method. I will dehydrate these. I will also grind some into an onion powder. I will keep some just dehydrated in a jar, and then I will also freeze some. Now, when you freeze them, the texture is supposed to get mushy, which I don't like that idea. But to save some space, I can freeze them, and then I can put them in my, I have one of the machines that air packs them, sucks all the air out. And so that really, really reduces the space needed to store them. So I'm going to try that too. So I'll show you how I'm going to do it. I like to cut off the tips of the onions, mainly because they're a little bit harder. And I go ahead and cut them. I'm not exactly precise. I'm just cutting them as fast as I can. Some of them are about 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit over. You're going to notice in this video, you might see here's a top of a flower. I can go ahead and cut this up and dehydrate it and add it. It won't hurt. When I make my onion powder, it won't hurt, but I'm going to leave it out. That's just a preference. That's my choice. You're going to notice as I'm cutting this that there is a sticky substance, almost like a gel coming out of some of the bigger, more mature onions. And you'll see it right here. But again, that is edible. It is not a nice texture. I wouldn't want to just eat this with this gel on it. But I'm going to be dehydrating these. I'm not going to worry about it. The gel will dry. It will dry up, and they will dehydrate just fine. It is part of the process of the onions maturing, but it's totally edible, and it is not dangerous to eat it. I have another tray of green onions ready to go in the dehydrator. Here's my bunching onions and my Kasori dehydrator. I'll be dehydrating these on 135 degrees for about 10 hours or overnight. And I did not pack them. I packed them tight and loaded up each tray. I have a lot of onions. These are going to dehydrate. They're going to turn really, really small. And some of them may even fall through these holes. I have a plastic tray here on the bottom to catch them, and I have a few more trays. So as they start dehydrating, I'll be checking on them. I might be redistributing them onto some of the plastic trays instead. But for now, I just want to get all that air circulating and get them going. So 135 for 10 hours. And like I said, they'll be reducing and shriveling up very quickly. So most of my onions are in the Kasori dehydrator. They'll be done tomorrow, and I will come back and show you how I'm going to store them tomorrow and grind them into powder. The rest of these, I'm going to just chop them up, flash freeze them, and then I will use my FoodSaver bag to take the air out and just store them pretty flat. And I'll put them in my freezer and then use them, in soups and stews and things like that. So I have these green onions cut up, and this is the tray that I'm going to flash freeze. And flash freezing just means I'm going to put it in the freezer like this. And when these are frozen, should be able to easily put these into a jar and store it in my freezer so that I can open it and use some when I'm cooking. Or I could put these in little FoodSaver bags and food save them. And so this is going to go right into my freezer here. And I'm just going to set it right on top. And it should be ready in a couple hours. I'll come back and check on it. And in just a few hours, we'll come back and check and see how it's doing. And then we'll move on to the next step. So my dehydrator is now filled with bunching onions that I'm dehydrating. And also I have a huge tray of bunching onions sliced in the freezer to flash freeze. And I still have more bunching onions. So what I'm going to do now at this point is just chop these up, cut these up, and I'm going to put them in a bowl in the refrigerator. And if I get room in my dehydrator or with the frozen flash, the ones that are being flash frozen, I will just add these in and try to process these as well. But this is actually a really great problem to have when you have too many bunching onions to preserve. So it's been over 24 hours, and here's the frozen bunching onions. They keep the color really nicely, as you can see, and they're basically bright and green, and they still have a wonderful smell, and they're frozen, and they're going to last in the freezer for quite some time. So let me show you how I'm going to store them in the freezer. So first, I'm just going to take these and I'm going to put them in one of my ball jars. And I read this online and I thought it was just a great idea, but someone mentioned if you just put them in a jar like this, or even a water bottle or something, you can just open it up and sprinkle out, the amount that you need for whatever recipe. So I could open this up and just sprinkle out however many I want. They're not stuck together. They're nice and separated. Now, I don't have an outdoor freezer, so I don't have a lot of room in my freezer. So the other thing that I'm going to do with these is I'm going to use my FoodSaver on them. So that's the next way that I'm going to preserve these. So the next way that I'm going to preserve my bunching onions is to put them in just a small freezer bag like this, and use my FoodSaver to suck out all the air and preserve the bunching onions. One more option for storing your bunching onions fresh, these are not flash frozen, they're fresh, I just cut them, is if you don't have the FoodSaver, you don't want to bother with flash freezing them, you don't have the time, you don't have ball jars, you don't want to put them in a jar, you don't have room like me, you don't have room in your freezer. I just took these fresh onions and I just put them in a Ziploc baggie, and I am going to just freeze them like this. And this, I've never done this, so what I'm hearing is that this will create a different texture. Instead of them being, the flash frozen ones are easy to separate into groups, however many you need. Once you freeze them like this, they get a little bit of maybe kind of moisture goes into them, and they might get a little bit wilted, say, kind of like lettuce. But you could still throw them in your soups and your chilies and your stews and all that kind of thing, and I think they'll still be great. You won't be able to use them like you do with fresh onions that you want to sprinkle onto your eggs or something like that, and you need them kind of crisp. But I do a lot of cooking. I do a lot of like soups and stews where if I put these in them, it's going to wilt anyway. So I don't think it really matters. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze a bag like this as well. So now I have my flash frozen bunching onions in a bell jar or ball jar. I have some flash frozen onions that are in a FoodSaver bag. And now I have this that's, I'm going to try it and see. But it's just, I'm hoping I can also open it up and just take out a little bit at a time. So this is another third thing that we can try. Here is a bowl of my dehydrated bunching onions. As you can see, when I pulled out the onions and I went ahead and dehydrated them, I ended up with a whole giant bowl of them. So these did not dry up as much as I thought they might. These are just wonderful. They smell great. As you can see, you want to dry them so that they're very, like they can just crunch. You don't want them to be at all like moist. You want them very dried out. And these are very, very dry and crackly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in my little Hamilton Beach chopper, and I'm just going to grind them into a powder. Now, my Hamilton Beach mini chopper, it doesn't do a fantastic job of grinding. It's not like having an actual herb grinder. It's just a small chopper. So normally when I chop my herbs using it, I don't get a powder. I get very small pieces. So you'll see as I do this, if you want a powder, like for me, if I want a powder, I would probably have to buy another appliance, which I really don't want. And I don't mind it not being a fine powder. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is my little Hamilton Beach chopper. I've had it forever. I like it because, again, it's small and it doesn't take up tons of space. So I'm just going to put the dehydrated green onions in here. They took I kept them in about 24 hours because I wanted to make sure that they were really, really dry. So now what I'm going to do, this chopper has a little hole here, right here. So powder can come out and then I breathe it in, which isn't good. So I like to cover this up and I will start pressing and chopping. So here is the consistency when I use my mini chopper. It comes out like this. And I like it this way. I think it's great. I don't need it any finer than this. But like I said, if you did, you might want to invest in an actual herb grinder. So here's the bunching onions that I processed in my little mini chopper. So I wouldn't actually say it's onion powder, but it's onion powder with the small pieces. I like it this way. I don't have a problem with this way.